or business, 100% claim is always guaranteed.
Welcome to World Class Insurance Services. We are Anchor Insurance,
where insurance truly works.
It is 18 degrees centigrade here in Abuja. Humidity is about 46%. Quite chilly, I tell you. So, but it's expected to rise much later today if you look at how all of that will play out. So, yeah, a bit hazy as well. So if you have to hit the road here this morning in the city of Abuja, just plan for that. As a matter of fact, I saw lots of people just with their jumpers. So, but of course, it's in the car much later. You'll have to discard it. So, very lovely weather here in Abuja.
Indeed, the morning can be deceptive, though. It hopes to rise to about 36 degrees, much warmer, much later today. So, do not be seduced by the morning. Get up and get going. Good morning and welcome.
And in Lagos, again, I take you back to this iconic site of the National Arts Theatre in Lagos. How many people even know what that design of the National Arts Theatre was patterned after? Well, could be a quiz. I'm sure Chamberlain will have a gift or two for you. But the weather in Lagos at this moment is 25 degrees, and it feels like 29 degrees for some. The potential to rise until about 34 degrees later today, but it feels like 29 degrees really if you look at it. It's partly cloudy and humidity is about 90%, and the wind is traveling at 8 kilometers an hour. How does it feel when you got out this morning? Welcome to Sunrise Daily. I'm Ayo Makinde. What's happening today, Chamberlain? All right, yes, indeed, Ayo, thank you very much indeed. I'm Chamberlain. So, but happening today, well, we're still keeping our tabs in the courts because there will be some activity that will make the rounds today. So the Taraba State Governorship Appeal will be going on. So the Supreme Court will be entertaining the suit between the Taraba State Governor and his NNPP counterpart. So they are trying to tussle for that. It's not smiling times yet for the governor. So because it's a dispute right there, because who knows where the pendulum will swing today.
It's not over until it is over, Chamberlain. I think we're also going to be seeing something happening in Sokoto. Well, also in the matter in Sokoto. Supreme Court will also be hearing that of the Sokoto governorship appeal. Yesterday I was taking a bet that I knew where the cases were going, and I can safely say, maybe going by what happened yesterday, that perhaps we have a very clear idea of how the lordships will rule today. The chances are very high that they're going to be reserving judgment till a later date, which is what we saw yesterday at the Supreme Court in the matter involving the Nasarawa governorship appeal.
Yeah, but those cases will have to be determined latest on the 22nd of this month. So whatever happens, all of those cases will be decided. So Rivers, Ogun, Taraba, now you heard Sokoto, but of course you know that there will also be a number of other states. Nasarawa, as a matter of fact, will also be there. So all of those cases will be decided
on or before the 22nd of January. Well, today as well, the FCT minister is expected to be in Buhari. You remember some of the incidents that occurred there. So he did speak to the press yesterday. So many are looking to see what measures will they take to ensure that things don't go further south. All right, so let's go on now to take you through some of the dailies. Vanguard is the first one here today. Tinubu, Wike rise against insecurity, vow renewed action. You see lots of riders here. Meets service chiefs, vow to secure every inch of Nigeria. Says he inherited many assets, liabilities from Buhari. So, and then says failure to use BVN to trap perpetrators. Indictment on security agents. So that's one thing you see there on the front page of Vanguard.
Leadership has this kidnapping. Tinubu, Wike service chiefs brainstorm on crisis. It's disturbing, ungodly, says President. IGP orders DIG to crush kidnappers. FCT minister gives area council chairman marching orders. Gunmen kill 7 in Nasarawa community attack. So all of it focusing on insecurity. That's the lead story on the front page of leadership newspapers.
The Nigerian Tribune today is focused on what happened in Ibadan. That is already a major issue all across the nation. Explosion rocks section of Ibadan. That's where the Nigerian Tribune leads the story. The details of it you'll find on page 2. Security men flood part of Bodija Estate. Many injured rushed to UCH, other hospitals. Vibration from blast felt across city. Houses shattered, destroyed, malls affected. Government describes explosion as uncommon. Deploy security, paramilitary chiefs, fire service operatives. NEMA staff, part of rescue operation. Number of dead, injured, unknown. That's coming from the police. That's the lead story of the Nigerian Tribune today.
Or Daily Trust, despite multi-billion naira complex, NSA's office commits 32 billion naira to new buildings. It's misplacement of priorities, CSOs, experts. So that's what you see. And then on the front page here, you see the new NFA's office complex inaugurated by former President Muhammadu Buhari on March 21, 2023.
The Guardian has this. Federal government opts for conditional divestment as oil majors trade $4.5 billion assets. Page 6 is where you'll find details. But let's leave it there for the Guardian newspapers.
The New Telegraph also talking about what happened in Oyo State. It's with its as its lead story today. Pandemonium as massive explosion rocks Ibadan. Stories on page 3. Shopping mall, UCH, hospitals, others affected. Makinde calls for calm, deploys security personnel, others.
Yeah. And then News Direct says insecurity. Tinubu meets security chiefs at Aso Rock amid bandits' invasion. As Wike warns Abuja Council chairman from abandoning duty posts. IGP summons task force, tactical squad commanders over killings, kidnapping. So those are the scenes you see today.
And Business Day has this. Kidnap plague threatens Tinubu's food security plan. Fear grips Abuja residents as criminals hold sway. President promises to eliminate every agent of darkness. As a lead story on the front page of Business Day.
And Daily Independent leads with an aviation story. NCAA to review minimum 6 aircraft for intending airlines. What does all of that mean? Who's committing the money? Stakeholders advise regulator on how to stimulate aviation growth. Find the details of that story. Continue on the inside pages.
Okay, guys, so some of the issues that are sticking out here, like a sore thumb, is the security challenge. And so much as, yes, on the front page of Vanguard, it did highlight that. So all of that security meetings, the president is having meetings with service chiefs, and it turns out that some of the infrastructure that was put in place to ensure that these things work, it just comes across as though it's a human component that seems to be failing. Because here you see when it says, failure to use BVN to track perpetrators, indictment on security agencies. So how can anyone ever explain that? We all remember the marching orders, the deadline that they gave to the entire citizenry of the country. Go get your NIN or else they will the big stick. Now, after going through all the hassles, because there were several postponements and movement of the deadlines, so people got it done. People got their lines barred because they couldn't do all of these things, only to be told now that security agencies are failing to use the BVN and NIN.
And it's interesting that there's been no response to that. I mean, someone as prominent as an ex-minister makes that sort of allegation, says that it's not because it's not working, it's the failure to utilize it that has caused this disconnect. And no senior government official has given any response to that particular allegation, saying that it's a non-utilization. No security boss has said that's not true, or these are the challenges that we're experiencing as a result. It's been total silence. Well, maybe in the light of the president inviting them, maybe there will be some other sort of response. But it'll be very interesting to know what the excuse will be. Is it that it's difficult to use? Is it that it is more technical than we're saying? Or is it that there's just no use of it whatsoever? Big question.
There are definitely plenty uses for this. And that also raises the questions as to the CCTV cameras. Remember, we spend billions to ensure that these things work, both in Lagos and Abuja. And today, who has told us about this? And look, I'm not sure people are comfortable when you hear we don't want to open the books or go back in time. No, we spend taxpayers' money. So if we spend that money, people deserve answers. It doesn't matter how long that is, because if it's spent, it was supposed to be done. If it's not been done, why? Or else, people will just think, look, if that's the way government works, you're going to have a hard time convincing people to ensure that, look, get your taxes paid because this and this will happen. So there should be those who should answer questions. And by the way, I'm not sure the president will be shy to let heads roll if people are not performing. Security too should know that they will look them really hard in the face. If there's failure to do certain things, heads should roll. So if there's going to be cabinet reshuffle, whatever name you want to call it, you need people who can do the job. That's why they're there. If they can't roll up their sleeves and get the job done, I don't know why they're still there.
Well, the story that has caught my own attention is this one on the front page of The Guardian, where they have some pictures to also buttress the story. Governor calls for calm as casualties, damaged buildings trail Ibadan explosion. It's done now. I'm sure that we will get a clearer picture as to what precisely has happened in Ibadan, and perhaps how many people are, involved in this particular incident. It's unclear what has happened, what has caused the explosion. But, I think that there needs to be more awareness of what citizens should do in the event that, you hear something that loud. I recall that we had something like this in the Ikeja cantonment when the armory of the Nigerian Army, I think, situated in Maryland, exploded. And out of panic, we lost people out. We lost a lot of people. Over 100 people lost their lives, running towards a canal. And it was dark, and people didn't know precisely what was happening. And they lost their lives not as a result of the explosion, but as a result of the panic that came from it. So we need to focus on, we've been harping on it since the first of this. We've been harping on it for a long time, but at least more recently, since the first of this month. And we need to pay more attention to safety and the trainings around safety for our people. Just yesterday, we had this is the secretary of the area control, Command and Control Center, and he was saying that citizens need to know that when there is an emergency, they need to be able to make way for first responders to be able to get to the site of an accident, for instance.
You know,
this kind of education, we need to really up it this year.
Because it won't come from the blues.
Indeed.
Because that's why we did tell him too, that security agencies have to lead from the front. So, because if what happened at that time, when people ran into the canal, what's happened again today, look, chances are 90% of the same kind of result will happen again.
Will happen again, indeed.
Because what do people know now? If something happens now, what do they do?
Indeed.
They don't know. What is the level of the threat? How should they be called? You don't even see any communication promptly as well, because look, there's just so much. There's a lot to do.
There's a lot to be done. I mean, in a place where people are unemployed and we have unemployment at a massive scale, in a country where there is so much to be done, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. We need to put people to use. And these are some of the areas that we can begin to look at. Ayo.
Well, that's very encouraging, to say, guys. But when you look at the fact that maybe because government is unable to government at various levels are unable to provide jobs for people, people literally look for jobs themselves. Taking me to that story on the front page of the Vanguard newspaper, I'm sorry, I have to go back to that particular paper. At the top of the page, the Vanguard newspaper this morning is this story. 83 illegal refineries uncovered in 1 week. 83. And guess what? It is another newspaper, connected it to oil theft. And the question that comes to my mind naturally is, okay, so now we know that there are illegal refineries. What's going to happen? Okay, so we have discovered that illegal refineries are there. We've been asking the question, Chamberlain and Malkwe, for eons. Who are the oil thieves? We won't stop asking that question. Because the story, you please go ahead and read the story, but one of the things that you will find is that the illegal refinery connections were spotted in Rivers, Abia, Imo, and Bayelsa states. And it's very easy for the states, the state governments, to absolve themselves, because oil, petroleum issues in Nigeria are the exclusive preserve of the federal government. So if they do not do anything about it, can we really blame them? Okay, the governor, while Nyesom Wike was governor of Rivers State, we remember the fact that he had to go to some of these illegal refineries. Now, numbering 83, they didn't just spring up in 1 week or 1 month. They are refineries, and refineries don't just spring up. And refineries don't come cheap, not 5,000 or 10,000 naira. Is that a suggestion that there are some, as some would say, powerful forces behind these refineries? Are these the reasons why they are untouchable? Are they untouchable? Who are these oil thieves, we keep asking? 83 illegal refineries uncovered in 1 week, and that information is coming from no less than the NNPC. That's the Vanguard newspaper, my take from the Vanguard newspaper this morning. Chamberlain.
A very interesting take. Only recently I had the privilege to speak with someone who has worked in this area. Trying to, ensure that oil theft is reduced in the Niger Delta. And the optics of the perspective was quite pessimistic. They think that this is going nowhere. If the returns on this investment is higher than the risks, you will always find people in this sector. So I think a government might need to take a second and a very critical look at that sector and see how it is that they can engage the people, especially those small-time people doing illegal refining more gainfully. They might need to find a more creative way, because it would seem that this is just going to be an endless hunt. The moment they break down one area, before you say Jack, they are already up again in another area. And it doesn't take them anything to set up these things. It doesn't take them anything to set up these refineries. So, interesting thing that you have raised. For government that's looking to up its revenue and ensure that they stop oil theft and illegal refining, we need to apply more creativity and apply more concerted efforts, also very sincere efforts as well, not paying lip service to some of these things. But let's take a look at what is on the front page of Leadership. And this time, well, two stories immediately catch my attention. One is the fact that we're going to be looking outside of Nigeria this year to see what's happening in the United States. For those who follow the U.S. politics, Trump sweeping Iowa ahead of 2024 race is quite interesting. In November, the United States will be going to the polls, and it is unclear just who the candidates will be, but you can see all of the aspirants already, trying to get the caucuses ahead of the, the final primaries and, of course, the elections in the United States, which will happen this year. But beside that story is a story that's very local, focusing again on the issue of safety. I would not get tired of highlighting it. Remember that yesterday we saw a boat mishap happening in Niger State, and we understand that 100 people, if not 100 plus, were involved in that mishap. Now we understand 80 of them have been rescued, thankfully. 12 of them confirmed dead in that boat mishap in Niger State. I think that authorities need to speak more on this. I'm happy that the media is following the story. As we said, as we have highlighted here, this is about the third one we recorded in this year alone. It's just the 17th of January. We've seen one in Anambra, we've seen another in Rivers, and we're seeing one now in Niger State. All of them have claimed lives. We need to pay attention to safety. If we're not doing so great in the area of security, can we do better in the area of safety and not be careless with the lives of our citizens? Let's leave it there for leadership newspapers.
Yeah, it's going to be incredibly important. So whatever anybody thinks, whether it's coordinated or not, you have service chiefs who should get intelligence. They should see all of these things. That is why we spend so much money, because if you look at Daily Trust, you will see again, NSA's office commits 32 billion naira to new buildings. 32 billion.
How does that make sense?
So
what kind of buildings are they? Are they meant to catch people?
Well,
catch bad people?
Because there's another building on the front page of the same paper, which is the new office complex. So it will be this kind of office. So I just wonder how
is it enhancing our security?
Yeah. So
what's the correlation between how much we're spending on buildings like that and the results we're getting in the area of security? How is it impacting? Those are the big questions that we need to ask. Not just spend money because we want to spend or build new buildings because we think we're a big country.
Because look, the thing is too, I know that they will all say that they're all doing their bits and pieces, but look, they also need to have that conversation amongst ourselves. If they do whatever they can, wherever they can, whenever they think they can, if interagency cooperation, and then the question of reorganizing our security architecture in the country to deliver more results. Because if not, there's little things. Look, I can't call the explosion in Ibadan little because lives were lost.
Indeed.
So when things like that happen, they seem to take advantage of those gaps. So when it happens like that, they know how the country or the agents will respond. Because look, if anybody was going to steal, they'll recce, they'll study the place, they'll look for the weak link and move in. It's common sense for anyone who wants to do that. So they should know better than all of us how mindsets like those kind of mindsets work. So committing this amount of money, I hope it's going to get us the results that we need there.
Well, one of the things that comes to me readily about that particular one is the questions. Is it from this budget? Because I don't think that you can just decide over the past few months of this administration to say you want to put up certain buildings, drop the buildings and commit money to it. There has to be some kind of background. It's worth reading, everyone. Find out exactly what the issues are, because it is easy to reverse some of these things. And there has to be some serious arguments to it. The front page of Business Day, for instance, tells us one of those things that we need to give serious attention to. And it is essentially talking about food security. Look at the lead story. Kidnap plague threatens Tinubu's food security plan. That's the lead story of Business Day newspaper today. And that is something of more concern to many people. Food security, food. And if we kidnap the farmers that are supposed to produce the food, then where are we going? What are we going to do? Look at the riders. Fear grips residents, Abuja residents, as criminals hold sway. And President promises to eliminate every agent of darkness. Well, the details of that story will be very, very interesting to find out how indeed this would happen, because the plan of the president to boost food production, stabilize prices, and all those things, they're under threat. They've always been under threat. I mean, we've talked about Benue State, for instance, as the food basket of the nation for eons. Please, how secure is that environment? We remember those times when thankfully we aren't hearing much of those anymore, where farmers are afraid to go to the farm simply because they're not sure whether or not they will come back. So this kidnap plague hasn't gone. And I do not believe, again, I reiterate my absolute confidence in Nigeria's security and intelligence community. We know what is happening. I cannot be convinced that we don't know. These insecurity issues don't just happen. We know that they are there. We know. Some of us, I mean, we've heard stories of governors going to visit some of these kidnappers and bandits here and there. So the security agents do know. The question is, what are we doing? What political will do we need to enforce the law that we already have? So, if we are going to be food secure, we have to first of all be secure. That's my take, guys.
All right, thank you very much indeed. That is it, though, with a look at some of the dailies here this morning. So, just before we go, also going to happen today, a lot about security, and so you find this, there's this special intervention squad by the IGP, so they're going to be doing something about it today. So it's going to happen at the force headquarters in the FCT here, so he's going to launch it. So we're looking to see questions about the impact, what we expect from this, because at the end of the day, results, that's what everybody wants to see. All right, so we will be back with you in a moment and talk a little bit about the unfortunate incident that happened in Oyo State, Ibadan to be specific. It was a shocking one. It occurred late yesterday. Some say about 7:30, some 8, but news developed and filtered in, and so we're able to just some scenario. Unfortunately, some of the residents who were caught up in what transpired, they were not sure. There were several commentary. Was it a gas explosion? Was it different speculation about what happened? But I think we do have some piece of materials from several people in Ibadan. So let's just have you take a look at some of them, and then we'll just highlight a few of them.
Have you heard that you can now print glossy, high-quality, 7 pages, A2 size wall calendars for just 120,000 naira only, and A3 size for just 60,000 naira only, and it will be produced and delivered to anywhere of your choice in Nigeria within 96 hours, without even having to leave your room. Listen, this is how it works. Just open WhatsApp, send your pictures and other content, and you will receive your custom design online for your approval within 24 hours. What are you waiting for? Call our hotline for more details on 0913-156-5016, 0812-794-9323, or 0815-508-8279, or visit our social media pages. Cast Prints, digital printing at super speed.
So, there is a small problem. Despite all the entertaining ads we've created for you, some of you still haven't tried our services. Come on. First of all, we are a licensed microfinance bank. Sorry about that. For instance, you can open a business account with us and get our POS with it. It's good for your business.
99.99% reliable.
I love it. Our card, it dey work.
My money no dey hang.
You can open a business or personal account with us in minutes. Our customer care is available. Abi? So, when it comes to reliability, security, convenience, and speed, you only need one bank.
Join millions of happy customers. Download the MoneyPoint app or find an agent near you to get started.
This ad is the MoneyPoint app. Don't forget that.
Discover Lipton's flavorful and balanced taste. We pick fine quality tea leaves from selected tea gardens around the world to give you Lipton Yellow Label's flavorful and balanced taste in every sip.
Have you heard that you can now print glossy, high-quality, 7 pages, 8-2 size wall calendars for just 120,000 Naira only, and A3 size for just 60,000 Naira only, and it will be produced and delivered to anywhere of your choice in Nigeria within 96 hours, without even having to leave your room. Listen, this is how it works. Just open WhatsApp, send your pictures and other content, and you will receive your custom design online for your approval within 24 hours. What are you waiting for? Call our hotline for more details on 0913-156-5016, 0812-794-9323, or 0815-508-8279, or visit our social media pages. Cast Prints, digital printing at super speed.
So, there is a small problem. Despite all the entertaining ads we've created for you, some of you still haven't tried our services. Come on. First of all, we are a licensed microfinance bank. Sorry about that. For instance, you can open a business account with us and get our POS with it. It's good for your business.
99.99% reliable.
I love it. Our card, it dey work.
My money no dey hang.
You can open a business or personal account with us in minutes. Our customer care is available. Abby? So, when it comes to reliability, security, convenience, and speed, you only need one bank.
Join millions of happy customers. Download the MoneyPoint app or find an agent near you to get started.
This ad is the MoneyPoint app. Don't forget that.
What really happened here?
No, not there, but my mom stays in Adi.
Okay.
My sister and my son.
Okay.
So they are badly injured. The house is demolished on them.
Demolished on them?
Yes. Stitching their legs, their hands.
They are still in the hospital now.
Yes,
which hospital are they now?
Redeemer Hospital.
Redeemer Hospital. Beside a small, right?
Yes.
All right, so some residents of Oyo State in Ibadan alarmed at what happened yesterday. But we do have Mr. Fatai Owoseni joining us next. He is the SA to Oyo State Governor on Security. He's the former Commissioner of Police for Lagos and Benue States. Good morning and thank you for joining us. We know it's a busy schedule for you there in Ibadan today. Could you tell us, so what exactly happened?
Good morning, Chamberlain. Like I said, it was an explosion, but I go off now. I will join you in another 1 minute.
Okay. All right, then, yes, we didn't. He's on the road, actually, with the security team, so they are all trying to see what can do. But yesterday, the Oyo State government did put up a notice saying that they are aware of reports of an explosion in Ibadan. Residents are urged to remain calm as security agencies are investigating this to determine the source and cause of the incident. Then they also tweeted much later that relevant agencies are carrying out search and rescue operations at the scene of the incident. Residents of the state are urged to remain calm as Oyo State government is on top of the situation. But that's phrase, you know, used to that by now. But they also did say it was much later that this tweet came through. They needed to see a lot more quick response from the agencies. They needed medical teams on ground. They needed proper coordination, boots on the ground. Residents said they didn't see any of those. And so if they tweeted asking people to remain calm, how in the world were they expected to remain calm when lives are lost. People don't know what transpired. They're running from pillar to post. And so those are the information we need to find out. How are they responding and handling this today?
Well, it will be interesting to, eventually find out or unravel precisely what has happened in Oyo State. But yesterday, initially, it was said that only one person had lost. Well, one person is bad enough, but, given the panic, the state of panic that had engulfed and the scale which we heard the explosion happen, when we heard that it was just one person, people were like, okay, maybe it was not as serious as we thought. But it does appear that that was not the situation.
Yeah,
and
the images show that.
Exactly, and it's unclear precisely what had happened, whether it's a gas explosion or precisely what could have exploded to cause that sort of impact, because it was felt in many areas of Ibadan. Some people are still not clear as to where precisely it happened, and that's the reason why it would be very good to get Mr. Oshini, who is the special advisor to the governor on security matters, where precisely this has happened, what has caused this, how many people have been affected, if they've been able to get, a head count of perhaps maybe lives were lost. At least we heard that one person lost their lives yesterday. If it was more than one person, how many more? How many have been injured? How are they looking after them?
Some say it's more than one.
Indeed.
If I see figures, some say 10. Some say 15 bodies were also in the hospital, so there are different scenarios.
Indeed.
Now, yes, we don't know where exactly that happened. There are different accounts. While some say it was at the Joe Oyelese, some say it's the AC Mall in Songo, different places, Bodija. So, well, Ayo, what, have you gotten any updates whatsoever other than what we've got now?
Information that has also come in is from the governor of the state himself, who, of course, as part of the communication with the people, we heard some of his comments on the morning brief this morning. But according to the governor, preliminary investigations by security agencies revealed, that illegal miners occupying one of their houses in Bodija had stored explosive devices there, which caused the blast. And investigations, of course, are ongoing. The governor visited the explosion site at about 7:44 p.m. yesterday. It happened somewhere around Bodija in Ibadan. Of course, as soon as it started, guess what? Of course, you have what we call first responders, who are not from government. People, generally neighbors, would want to do the best that they can, and that also certainly happened. But of course, the governor also underscored that they have deployed first responders and all relevant agencies within the Oyo State Authority to carry out comprehensive rescue and search operations. And of course, the operations are going to continue throughout until it is concluded. But one of the information also available about the things that the governor said is that medical personnel are on standby at various hospitals. By the way, the government has also declared that anyone can be taken to any hospital in and around the explosion site, and that the government will take care of them. And they've also advised that, hotels should be available. That's one part of information to confirm from Mr. Woshini when we eventually get him. But medical experts at hospitals are supposed to provide assistance to those who have been injured, and the UCH has also been visited, and some of the people are there. In total, according to the information available from the governor, 77 injured victims so far, as at the time of this particular report I'm reading, have been identified, and most of them were treated and discharged. And according to this, also this report, 2 fatalities so far have been recorded. But we can only, hope and pray and that indeed the souls of the departed will be reposed. But, it's really very, very heart-rending that such a thing would happen. I was just thinking how many of these people, how many of these things we can undertake. If you can, we'll probably even listen to the governor of Oyo State also make some comments, and hopefully we'll be able to hear from our correspondent as well to give us an update, because the comment from the governor was from last night. It's morning time now. All kinds of reports are also making the rounds. We understand that the environment, the area has been cordoned off so that the evidences are not tampered with and all. But I also have this feeling, guys, that whatever it is, I mean, if the governor, according to the governor, it's a result of illegal miners harbored in one particular place, and they had explosive devices, illegal miners, explosive devices. I don't think it is something coming to the people in the environment for the first time. I think that some people might have heard a thing or two, and they could have been able to put out word to security agencies to say, look, there are some illegal or suspicious activities going on with some of these people, illegal miners in Oyo State, and the people, do the people know? Don't the people know? I also dare ask, aren't there, people in the environment that could have reported this? These are some of the things that I'm still questions that I'm asking, Chamberlain and Markwell.
Yes, indeed, Ayo. There's so many moving parts, and so our team are just on the ground as well. They're gathering as much information as possible, and we'll bring all of them to you when we get them. But for now, we'll be back and take a look at the comments that came through from the book launch for the former president, Buhari, yesterday.
I hope you will be convinced by the presentation that would be made, that much was achieved and acknowledged and commended. I believe that in certain areas there seem to be some lacuna in success. For example, in certain areas of security, and in certain areas of economics, and in certain areas of finances. Yes, we have some problems, but a lot was achieved all the same. However, above all, I salute your courage in your foray or journey into politics, and also in governance and presidency. Can one say, like a good Irishman, the saying, as a good Irishman, the third term, you are third term lucky before you got through and survived the 8-year period. And of course, especially during the second term, in the tense, hostile political contest before your second term.
All right, yes, indeed. We've got Mr. Solomon Dalung joining us here this morning. He's the former Minister of Sports. He was there with the former administration. Good morning and Happy New Year to you. Thank you for coming on today.
Chamberlain, good morning, and good morning, Nigerians.
Oh, yes, indeed. And I haven't seen you ever since you lost your parents. So I can officially say our condolences to you and the family.
Thank you very much.
All right, so with this launch yesterday, it got many tongues wagging, even though Mr. Additional said he's writing about the software, not the hardware, but he went on to talk about some of the experiences. He said, he will leave out the policy, infrastructural development to several other people, but he focused on other aspects, which even though he still got several people thinking, but you were also in that government, you've heard what was said about the former president. So what were your immediate thoughts listening and watching how everything just unfolded, knowing that everybody saw how the government unfolded.
Well, in history, documentation is very critical. I think Adesina has told his own story from his own perspective. So Buhari's administration will be like the narration of the 5 blind men. And so everybody has his experience of where he touched. And that will be how Buhari's government. So we are yet to have an end to books titled Working with Buhari, because we need to have so many people putting their experiences. But from the perspective with which Adesina published, I think he limited his understanding of what took place to being the spokesperson of the president. But the book does not cover comprehensively, what the government did in 8 years, the challenges, some of the intrigues, the power play, the relationship between the key actors and then the MDS. I think we need to have a detailed account of how Buhari run his government. But what he has done is wetting the lips of Nigerians and just scratching the back.
Interestingly, another set of books were also co-launched alongside this book. I think it was called The Legacy of Buhari, and those ones were a bigger volume. They have about 5 copies or so. I think it has five volumes. Yeah. It was edited. I'm trying to remember the name of the person. Dr. Idu Hassan also edited that compile. Dr. Udu Yakubu edited the books yesterday. That was also launched as well. So do you think that perhaps there was an attempt to try and give a very comprehensive, yes, Mr. Adesina wrote this from his own perspective, but then looking at that comprehensive, compilation, do you think it is an attempt to give a more holistic outlook of what the Buhari years were like?
The report about maybe about Buhari's government has not been that comprehensive, and most of those who have written have only covered their areas of interest. I give an example. There was a publication, the midterm report of Buhari's administration, and that publication, I was in government, but completely all the achievements recorded in sports was not mentioned. So that signifies the fact that those who are publishing chooses what to publish. And I went to the president and said, well, we made more remarkable achievement than any ministry within the first 2 years. We were able to commission projects which even the Ministry of Works, Power and Housing, even to the end of our tenure, could not even commission a 10-kilometer road. So why was it not contained in that publication? And he only apologized to me, and said it was maybe the error of those who were compiling it. So what you have been published will be what interests the publishers. But I think, to be fair to Nigerians, we need a publication that will comprehensively assess Buhari's government policies, aligning policies, campaign promises, and what the government was able to achieve. So I am not more or less trying to blame those who have made that attempt, but in academics, they have just set the ball rolling.
Well, when these books are written like this, while some people will say, well, it's extremely important that, the administration of any leader be documented. Even in businesses, it is important that, leaders' administrations are documented, not to now talk of, a country, or even within the political arena. But some will also view this as an attempt to whitewash, what has happened. Because if, for a number of Nigerians, or for many Nigerians, they believe that if a government has done well, they will know. They would feel it by the impact and the legacy left by that person. And if the person hasn't done well, they will also know, ultimately, they are supposed to be the ones who give the verdict as to whether or not an administration has done well or not. Do you agree with them?
Yeah, I agreed entirely. You see, to speak of a legacy of an administration, you don't need to ask somebody in Metama, somebody in Mararaba. The story, the experiences of somebody from Mararaba is likely going to be more genuine about the impact of the government on the lives of the people than anybody living in Metama. So what we are having here now is, those from the comfort zones are telling their stories of the legacies. And they've excluded the Nigerians, fellow Nigerians, who even invested their monies in campaigning for the change in 2015. I had a time to quarrel when one of such documents was launched while we were in office. And all the people that were gathered there were elites. And I asked Governor Mosun, who was the chairman of the book launch about the president. I said, these people you gathered here, where were they when we were campaigning for the president? The president was sponsored by Nigerians who even scratched cards, donated their money, squandered their businesses to install a leader. And then you are launching a book about them, and you are calling people who didn't even believe in him to come and gather here to give money. I told him this wasn't right. So what you find happening here, people are trying to invent legacies. And I will give you an example. You had the vice president mentioning my name about
your engagement in the Niger Delta.
The Niger Delta.
Yeah.
Now, not much is even said about that. He just went by passing. But the entire groundwork of the stability of the Niger Delta region was done by me. And I went into the creek alone, without any security, without anybody. I spent 2 hours on the high sea, and I engaged these young people. We held discussion. We had even written documents. They gave me a charter of demand, which I returned to the president. Can you find this in any of Buhari's legacies? So nobody will tell the stories of what actually happened. But they will just try to whitewash and appease, invent legacies for Buhari.
Those are part of what many don't understand is because, last time we spoke with you, you did say that, true to type, that the president actually wanted people that can tell him the truth. That was why he called you, come on board. Mr. Additional also highlighted in his book that, well, the president told him, in the first instance, look, I need you to tell me the truth. That the office we're in now, chances are that it might be difficult for people to tell me the truth. If you want to see me and they block you, don't let anybody block you. Always come to me and tell me the truth. So, in that context, many then wonder, was it that he was not fully aware of what was going on in the country in terms of the policies and how things panned out? Did those who tried to shield him overshadow those who could tell him the truth?
Those who did not like the president had their way because they formed the perimeter walls around the president and allowing people to assess him. But to be very fair and honest to President Buhari, President Buhari loves the truth. Because if you were able to assess him and tell him the truth, he will listen. But again, if he's going to act, it is these same people around him that are going to convey whatever directives he will give. And this was where the problem came from. The last time I saw the president was on March 3rd, 2020. And I told the president...
2020?
Yes.
That's a long time ago.
Very good. And I told the president all that was happening in the country, including the deteriorating security situation, and drew his attention that this wasn't what we campaigned for and promised Nigerians, and that I was appealing to him to take a drastic step and deal with this issue because he is a retired general And if he cannot deal with insecurity in Nigeria, I don't see anybody coming to deal with it. And the president assured me that he was going to act. And he appealed to me that I should please kindly always come round to tell him this truth. And that was the last time I saw him. Even though I prophesied to him that this will be the last time I'll be seeing you, because I would have ruffled shoulders with this my idea. And like I kept saying, I'm a very handsome man, but very ugly in the mouth, because I will not fail to tell you the truth as it is, whatever you're going to do. So the president listened to me. He promised to act. But these same people around him, sadly, when he gave me an appointment again, I went to the villa. I traveled out of the country. I was out of the country. I came back. I went to the villa, and I was told, oh, it was a mistake. And I had to leave.
Well, let me read what Mr. Adesina wrote here on page 367. It's chapter 24, page 367 of the book. And in this chapter, he's talking about insecurity. He said insecurity, he spoke to them in the language they understood. Of course, that statement came from somewhere, one of the controversial statements that the president had given when he went to the Southeast. But that's the title of the chapter. Now, he says, except for those who cavil, carp, and grouch, honest Nigerians know that Muhammadu Buhari fought insecurity to a standstill in the country. That's the opening statement in that chapter. Is it a statement you agree with?
I don't. I can only agree that, in the first 1 year of his tenure, the president engaged in security and was able to recover about 24 local governments from Adamawa, Borno, and Yobe. But the subsequent development from 2019 till when the president left the office, we were under the rule of bandits, terrorists, and criminal gangs. The president kept promising, oh, we will deal with the situation, and each time he makes that statement, the terrorists become more emboldened and they persist in their attack. So I think Adesina should draw a line between when the president dealt with insecurity and what happened subsequently. And Nigerians are living with the trauma of his last 4 years.
So what do you think accounts for that disparity? If someone like Mr. Adesina believes that the president fought security to a standstill, and you believe that he didn't, many Nigerians will agree with you. Today, insecurity is a problem. Even the current president says we have to see what they can do. Yesterday, he summoned his security chiefs. It's still a major problem. What do you think accounts for that disparity?
I can say, I think, like I said earlier, trying to invent a legacy where it does not exist. The narrative must be put clean and clear. From 2019 to 2023, some of the devastating security situations we have in the country we've never experienced it. Talked about the Abuja, Kaduna, Trent kidnap. Where the victims spent so many months in the hands of the bandits. Talk about the kidnapping of students in the universities. Talked about even when the president visited Daura, 365 secondary school students were kidnapped a few hours after he landed in Daura. Adesina did not even attempt to explain how these issues were resolved.
No, but you haven't read the book, have you?
No, I've not read the book, but that statement, that very statement was too sweeping.
It's the opening statement of the chapter. I'm sure that when he makes that sort of statement, he goes on ahead to break in detail what he means by that, or to reiterate how he got to this conclusion, because it does appear that he makes a statement and then he goes down to explain why he's reached that conclusion in his statement. But I want to know why. I'm not making any excuses. I haven't read the entirety of the book. I'm just thinking that this is perhaps what he has done in the book, to make such a categorical statement. But I'm wondering, is there, looking at how, or listening to Mr. Femi Adesina yesterday, and you talked about how, many people fought for this president to be installed in 2015, how ordinary Nigerians believed that he held the solutions to their problems, and they even, contributed to his campaigns. Mr. Adesina spoke yesterday because it would seem that when the president started, he had a lot of loyalists. By the time he was done, or from 2019 up to 2023, it would seem that the landscape of his loyalists were changing. You have also alluded to that. And at yesterday's event, because at the end of 2023, when he handed over, a lot of things started to come to the open, and then people started to say all manner of things. And even the so-called loyalists, it would seem that some of them had already changed their own garb as well. But yesterday, Mr. Adesina said that, some people have asked why he's remained so loyal to the president. And he says that, President Buhari is a conviction. He used that word. I don't know if you heard it. It's a conviction. In other words, it almost sounded like an article of faith. Almost like if you're a Christian, you're a Christian. Almost like if you're a Muslim. Something to that effect. Something that is a conviction. Are you still convinced? Because somehow you say that the president is a man of truth, is a man who likes to listen to the truth. Are you still convinced in the persona of President Buhari? Do you think that he was affected by those who were around him? Or do you think that perhaps we didn't just understand who the person was?
No, I'm convinced as Adesina is on this issue. I have said this here.
You are convinced?
Yes, that Buhari as a person is different from Buhari as a president. I've said this here.
As a president?
Yes. Buhari as a person is a different personality. And the Buhari I know as a person and Buhari as a president are two different things. Because as a president, Buhari had promises he made to Nigeria. And I'm convinced that, the personality of Buhari should translate the Buhari I know into the benefit of Nigerians. That is what made me to go out of my way to support him. But disappointingly, we were unable to fulfill these promises. And I kept saying this. But that does not mean that I do not believe in Buhari. I believe in him.
Mr. Adesina also sees things differently because he also, in the book, indicated that before his appointment, while they took some names to the president, several names were there. His was also there. So when he looked through the names, he circled his and signed on it, meaning he valued loyalty. This was several years after that particular incident. And then one then wonders, you were close to him. He remembered what Mr. Adesina had done previously before that time. So what could have happened? Why was it that, did he, or was there any time, because you said the last time you saw him was 2020. So while the government ended, or towards the end of the government, if he valued loyalty, as we were told in the book, did he call you or anyone saying, look, even if they try to stop me, he would have remembered that these are persons who have been close to me. What do you think would have gone wrong in that instance?
I told you here that what happened to me as a person was caused by the president himself. Because the president seems to show some love for my person while I was in office. And that did not go down well with so many people around him who felt that they have been working with him closely from a PTF to when he became president. But some of us were his supporters politically from a distance. So this played out in they are trying to shield anybody whom they perceive the president has shown that love to him. And there were reasons why the president at least could show that love. And one was this Niger Delta issue. Because the risks I took, he tried everything possible to discourage me from going into the creek. And I told him 3 things will happen to me. I will come back alive, I will be kidnapped, I will be killed. Then he asked me this question, but why would you want to take that risk? And I told him, I can lay my life for this country. From that point, he started praying, and I left from my office and went. So some of the things I did closely with the president, some which I cannot say here, closely with the president, endeared me to the president, and also make me an enemy of people around him.
You know, in the same book as well, the author, contrary to what many thought, towards the end of the tenure, you become a lame duck. But he says, nope, that the president was even working up until the last day. In that same chapter, he spoke about insecurity. He chronicled activities, a checklist over months of the action he was taking to rout the bandits and things like that. And you know, add to that, this is not the first time he's in that position. He's been there as head of state. So he's supposed to come with all that experience to know how to weather the storm. So in spite of all that was written here, the accounts of what we still see about security, many find it hard to reconcile what he was doing at the time and the kind of results people saw. But you gave us an inkling saying personality, the person you know, and the president as a president were 2 different things.
Yes, the president was working in his office till the last day. But were people around him also working? Because that the president was working 24 hours. Whatever he was doing must be translated by the people he has recruited to help him work. Were they also working? If they were also working, it would have translated into actions, which Nigerians would have been saying something different. So I think, like I know the president, he will tell you, if you go to him and complain, he will tell you, but I am doing my own job. Why are others not doing it? And I told him, no, it is not done that way. These people you are referring to, you brought them to help you work, were not elected. So at the end of the day, you will be held responsible and not these people. So the president would have been working in his office, but people around him, were they working? And that is the 1 million question that Nigerians will answer.
Nigerians will answer. Well, as you said, it was the president who brought them. And it is his legacy which, you know, will be affected by whether or not they work. I'm just curious, because I'm sure that even the president must be, the former president now will be listening to some of the things that, you know, are documented to have happened in his own administration. Some of them he even gave his own consent to it by the statements that he made. One of them, for instance, is this Naira redesign. I mean, some people have said, no, it wasn't the president who sanctioned it. But I know that to the recollection of many Nigerians, the president came out with 2 statements on 2 different occasions, you know, endorsing that Naira redesign, which caused a lot of hardship. I mean, you know, as we speak, we're still feeling the effect of Naira redesign, and we understand there's Naira scarcity. It's very difficult to explain. But these are some of the things we've heard. We've also heard someone no less than the NSA, National Security, the current NSA, saying that they inherited a bankrupt economy. These are the things that we have heard, you know, we're still hearing, and we're feeling, we're experiencing. Inflation is at an all-time high. People cannot understand precisely what's going on with their earnings vis-a-vis the things that they have to buy. So when you look at the results vis-a-vis, you know, what some of the things that we're reading and the hard work that the president put in while he was in office, how come it is that it's not quite adding up? It's not quite at the same level that it ought to be.
You see, for the Naira design, I have not met with the president to be able to make any statement. But even if I'm given Bible, I will swear that the president approved it. Because Naira design appeals to his sentiment. When he was a military head of state, that was the same thing he did. So if it was again done this time around, I have every reason to believe that he is aware of it. That one, you cannot take it away from the president. But the attendant consequences of the policy, I doubt if that was also explained to the president. And his apologies, as you could hear him re-echo yesterday, extended to the hardship inflicted on Nigerians by that policy. So the president was not too informed as to the consequences as it turned out to be. Now back to the issue of inheriting a bankrupt economy. You know, this administration should not embark on a blame game, because a blame game will take them nowhere. The president, while campaigning, had every opportunity to be able to know the state of the nation. That explains his campaign promises. Secondly, he failed to set up a transition committee which should have taken over the government and provide him with adequate information about the state of the nation. So he went on to rely on the transition committee of the government, and he took over. So he knew the situation of the country, and he had solutions to the problems. That was why he contested, campaigned, and won. So the National Security Advisor should desist from creating the panic to Nigerians. This is not about the time they are talking about it. If they inherited a bankrupt economy, we are hearing stories of billions of money now being shared by ministries, transferred of billions made in 40 billion in 4 days. These monies are coming from where? In a bankrupt economy, and you're having this type of allegations of monumental looting going on just within 6 months? That does not explain a bankrupt economy. It explains, being economical with the truth. So the National Security Advisor should come clean, the government should come clean and tell us, in any case, Buhari himself inherited a bankrupt economy. As a minister, I spent 3.5 years with my own vehicle. I was staying in a hotel, I didn't have a house. In a year, instead of 12 months monthly subvention, the highest I got in 4 years was 6 months. So Buhari also inherited bankrupt economy. And if he has handed over the same to them, it's unfortunate. It shouldn't have been the case, because that wasn't what we wanted. But then they knew what they were buying.
Ayo.
What strikes me the most about this conversation is the power dynamics. I mean, you've spoken about quite a few times about the fact that there are people around the president, and that when the president makes a preference, expresses his preference, there are the people around the president that say one thing or the other, that don't like the persons that the president likes and all of that. Can you speak to us about that? Because there are a number of people who believe that, to a large extent, the powers around the president or the influences around the president at any time did quite significantly to influence how his governance was felt or not felt in all across the country. Can you talk to us about the power dynamics, particularly behind the president, around the president and the corridors of power?
I will begin by saying that I was in the transition committee that took over power and handed it over to the president. And on the day we went to take over the villa from the then President Jonathan, there was something the president said after we were gathered at the car park to take off. He said, this environment is not habitable for a Nigerian president. And I asked him why. And he said, it's too serene, too isolated from the country. So he was not going to live here. But of course, the same power cabal ended up taking him to the villa, which he said he was not going to live there. Understanding the power dynamics around a president is a complete symposium topic and research that a lot of people will need to dive into to understand. There are people within the presidency that you see them as just mere aides, but they are more powerful even than the ministers. They blocked the ministers from even seeing the president. I can remember that while we were in office, not so many of my colleagues had the privileges of seeing the president. Some of them could only see the president after the Federal Executive Council meeting. They put up memo to see the president. These custodians of the power base will determine when to see the president and how. There was a time we had challenges in the NYSC. The non-payment of allowances, and then we have a backlog of corpus to be mobilized. Now, it became a serious security issue because they were threatening massive demonstration. And I went to the villa 5 times to see the president and brief him. And on each occasion I go, in the office of the chief of staff, I will be told the president was very busy. Until when the issue became explosive and the DSS generated a security report. And when the DSS generated a security report and it came to the knowledge of the president, those who blocked me went there and leveled allegation that, they have not had anything from the minister responsible. And when I was invited, I went with 5 different memos in my armpit with different dates, and I gave the president. The president understood what was going on. On one of the occasions, I went, there were very serious issues of funding for an international sports event. And I kept going to the villa, and I was being told, the president is busy and this and that. Then one day, I sent a text directly to the president, and then the president gave me an appointment against their will. So when I went to the president, I told the president, I've written 5 different memos to you on 5 critical issues. The president said, no single memo before me. And I have learned the antics. So while going, I'm always with an envelope in my armpit. And the envelope will contain the photocopies of the memos. So I removed this one. The president said, no, I've not seen this. He signed. 5 memos were approved. And the president's reply came to me based on those 5 photocopies I gave the president. This is how these powerful people sitting down there. Sometimes they can even in the office of the chief of staff approve something and send to you, and the president approve. But any approval that originates from the president will have a photocopy of that same approval signed, attached to a letter from the office of the chief of staff conveying the approval. Anything shortfall of that is an ambush. It means the memo has been ambushed, and those replying are replying without the knowledge of the president.
Well, this is very, very revealing to a number of people. So there are those who have always believed, and I think that is what you are speaking to now, that there was some kind of power cabal, that affected, that were around the president, that influenced most of the things that he did. How influential, positively or negatively, would you say that this power cabal affected the governance of President Buhari while he was in office? How much were they able to impact positively or negatively, such that people believe that those people say, I don't know, you will still find it on Twitter or X, may we not see the Buhari years again? How powerful, how influential were those power cabals to influence such a reaction from the people?
I can say, ratio 80 to 20. 80 negatively and 20 positively.
And
because most of the things they allow to pass through during the time we were in office, because like I said, we run a serious battle with them, especially in my own ministry. Most of the memos that were approved majority I have to follow it up and even get to the level of the president to personally have it approved. I give you another example of the negative things that happen. This issue of the much talk about the Super Falcons winning their 8th championship in Cameroon. I applied for the funds for this competition 3 months before the commencement of the competition. The memo spent 3 months in the office of the president without a reply, despite repeated visits, until we went to Cameroon, won and returned, and I returned with the team. When I returned with the team, the late chief of staff to the president went to the airport to receive the team without even letting me know. The next day, I was told that the team was in the front of the villa demonstrating the non-payment of the allowances. And the late chief of staff called me and said, Minister, why did you have to do this? You didn't even tell us they were a competition and this and that. So the girls are here demonstrating. And I told him, sir, I am coming to join them with my own leave because I am supposed to be protesting before them. My memo for their monies was sent 3 months and is still in your office. He hung up the call, and he didn't say anything about it. So when we went to the Federal Executive Council, I told the president in council, I said, I was being attacked and insulted by Nigerians over this issue, but the problem was not caused by me. The problem was from your office. And I took it because I couldn't have told Nigerians then that a memo for Women African Championship in Cameroon spent 3 months in the office of the president before it was attended to. Finally, a chief of staff, the late chief of staff to the president, got the money from where he got it, I didn't know, paid the girls quietly when I told him that, I have much to say about the protest, and I'm also a protester. So this is how this thing affects negatively. And many of the ministers had this problem. The Minister of Health, Professor had his budget transferred from Minister of Health to Minister of Agriculture because he was disagreeing with the power base. So you can see that, it affected governance more negative.
Just one more question from me, sir. Do you think these cabals are avoidable by any president or governor in Nigeria? If you think it is possible, what needs to be done? If you think it is not possible, then what do we do?
The cabal is possible and is also avoidable. The only way you can avoid this cabal is while making your first critical appointments, which is the chief of staff, the secretary to government, national security advisor, minister of justice. You must also be able to bring people whom you know and believe in your vision. But you see, this cabal we are talking about, their foot soldiers are more active than them. Their foot soldiers they don't hold strategic appointment. They are either PA or SA to the chief of staff or this. These are the people that pick information. These are the people that leak memos. These are people that monitored everything the president is doing, and then they will be relating it to the main power base, which is outside the government. Even this very government has already been hijacked by the cabal.
All right, we'll have to anchor at that point. We do thank you very much indeed for coming on. Mr. Solomon Dalung, former Minister for Sports. We're back in just a moment, everyone. Don't go away.
Well, thank you for staying with us. Mr. Taiwo Edele is here with us this morning. He's the chairman, Presidential Tax and Fiscal Policy Reforms Committee. Thank you for your time again today.
Thank you for having me.
Nigerians have been wondering, when is this thing going to take off? I mean, by now, prices should be reducing simply because the Tax Reform Committee, is expected to have come up with some of those recommendations. Let's begin, first of all, by, how far so far?
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me. So you're right. So I also joined the Nigerians to say that I'm impatient to see the results coming up, and more importantly, the impact on the people, particularly the small businesses and the poorest people who are most impacted by the reforms and the different policies. Unfortunately, fiscal policy matters are not as quick. So if you make a monetary policy decision today, you can see the impact tomorrow. Sometimes fiscals take a little longer. But even at that, I feel like we could have made progress faster. So we submitted our first report in October with so many recommendations, over 20 recommendations. I'll say as of today, maybe about 3 of them have been fully implemented. The remaining ones are different stages of implementation. The biggest instrument to implement our recommendation is the Emergency Economic Intervention Bill that we came up with, trying to amend about 15 different laws to implement some very important changes that will help with price stability in terms of inflation. That will help also in terms of costs. That will help in terms of providing relief to the right people who are most impacted. That will help take the burden off small businesses. That would also, in a large part, help with, foreign exchange as well. I know that's the purview of the central bank, but we also think it's an area where we can work together between the monetary and fiscal authorities, and also even align with trade policies. So those are different stages. So in fairness to the lawmakers, we haven't presented the bills to them. And that was also because once they had the budget for 2024, it became their priority. And we are aware that they were working around the clock, late night, just to get the budget out of the way. But now that that's out of the way, we want to try and prioritize this and send the bill to them, and for them to also pass it as a matter of urgency so the Nigerian people can begin to feel the positive impact sooner rather than later.
So is there a timeline to this?
It's difficult to put a timeline to it. I can tell you what the steps are. So the internal processes of getting all the key stakeholders happy with the content is where we are now. The next phase will be for that to be presented to the Federal Executive Council. So it depends on when the next meeting will be, and then getting it to be on the agenda. And then once that has been done, then it's sent to the National Assembly. So at the National Assembly also, we have no control over that. But in our engagement with them, they recognize that this is an emergency issue, and therefore they would also prioritize it. So our expectation is that you should get that out of the National Assembly within 1 to 2 weeks. Given that we've done extensive consultation anyway, so this is something where once the National Assembly members are happy, you do public hearing, you pass it. Because it's coming from the executive, we don't see a problem with them signing it. So our estimation now, if I must give you any indication at all, is to say by the end of Q1. So latest by March, we should see these things come out. Fingers crossed.
Well, fingers crossed. So we are looking at, that is the execution, not the impact.
Yes.
So
you're right. So that's the execution, which is the biggest part of it. So what we've been trying to do is to work on the implementation mechanism to transmit the policy into real impact. We're already working on that. We're not waiting for the instrument to be out.
Okay.
So some of it will be, for example, we're asking states and local government to suspend nuisance taxes that just create problems with very little revenue to show for it. So we're already meeting with the governors In some cases, we set up small committees to discuss with their team. So we're already working on that. So once the thing is signed, there's no excuse. Just implement like the next day.
It's like you saw my list, because states is number one on my list here, because these are the places where the impact will be felt. And I always say this from time to time, that the federal government has citizens, states have indigents, and they are two completely different classes of people in any environment. So it's one thing to talk to states that have governors, executives. It's another thing altogether to talk to local governments, administrations that have to more or less take instructions, though unconstitutionally, from state governments to do whatever they need to do. We had a conversation on Saturday, and one individual came in with a list of about 60 taxes for a private car.
Yeah, I'm not surprised.
Really?
Yeah, I'm not. We've seen 73. Just one trip to transport goods from the north to the south, 73 stickers, 2,500, 3,000. This thing is really annoying, to be honest, right? Like, you wonder, how did we get here in the first place? In a country where there's the rule of law and you have government. It should not have happened in the first place.
Okay.
So, and I know you're a big fan of let's make local government work, and I think you should keep that. You should keep saying it, because anytime I listen to you, you have the opportunity. When you have the opportunity to say local government should work, and that is true. So, in our intelligence engagement with stakeholders, may not be, right from the point of the law. What we have in advice is you get the governors to say yes. You solve more than 90% of the problem. So yes, ideally, to those things, we want even local government to suspend. Okay. So we're discussing with the governors first and demonstrating to them why this is good for the local government, good for them, and good for us as a people. So once the governors agree, then we're not going to ignore the local government, right? But what we will advise is, if you start with the local government and they say yes, and the governor say no, you're going nowhere. So we are now doing, top-down approach, but we'll engage with everyone, including even the conference of speakers, the forums of finance commissioners. We're engaging with everyone. It's more like strategy of who are the biggest stakeholders to make this happen quickly.
There are those who believe that most of the levies, duties, or whatever you want to call it, that are charged by this stickers and all, most of it doesn't. Most of those monies don't get to even the state governments themselves. It doesn't get to the coffers of government. So, what are the benefits to the state government in the event that they agree, indeed, to these interventions? Because as we just finished having this conversation, the governors may not get the true picture of things if the power dynamics around them does not allow that to happen. So perhaps this is another marketing opportunity of sorts. Let the state governments know what are the benefits that come to them should these interventions that you are marketing to them, so to speak, come on stream.
Yeah, you're right, Ayo. So I think the starting point is even to say, what are they getting now? What benefits are they getting now? And what chaos are they creating now? Or maybe you call it disadvantages. So at the moment, according to the Bureau of Statistics for 2022, all the local governments in Nigeria that sent report to them didn't even collect 50 billion naira in a whole year. I'm talking 50 billion naira, not even 500 billion.
They didn't collect up to 50 billion?
They did not collect up to 50 billion.
Do you mind pausing for a second?
Yes.
Let me quickly take on Juliana Olayinka, our correspondent who is in Davos, Switzerland now for the World Economic Forum. Juliana, thank you for joining us. Could you please give us a quick update? What's the latest?
Good morning. Hopefully you can hear me. And
yes, we can hear you. Go ahead.
It has been incredibly hectic over the past couple of days, as you can imagine. So day one, of course, was Monday of the World Economic Forum here in Davos. But I would say that it kicked off proper yesterday. Of course, I know that the channel was covering the events of His Excellency Senator Kashim Shettima, who, of course, is here representing President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. And, it's absolutely important that Nigeria are here. Of course, I understand the mood music back home isn't exactly elated when it comes to government officials traveling across the world, and understandably so, because it comes with a hefty price tag. But just having been here over the past couple of days, whether you like it or not, it is in settings such as these that those big conversations take place. So this morning, I've been rushing around. In fact, I've just come out of this Africa collective discussion, basically talking about the Continental Free Trade Agreement. When is it going to kick off? Is it going to kick off? And this was a really important discussion because, again, in terms of the negative connotations for a gathering such as Davos, it can be very, very white and very, very male. And it is really difficult to find platforms where Africa is a topic of discussion, especially in a positive way. So it has been very busy. Today we're expecting more. So yesterday I know that Volodymyr Zelensky obviously spoke, which was one of the reasons why it was so difficult to get anywhere, because of course, as you can imagine, his security detail is probably bigger than what you would see surrounding US President Joe Biden. So that was quite interesting. Today, we're expecting more big names to show up. So I do believe the United Nations Secretary General, Antonio Guterres, is going to speak. We know that artificial intelligence is seen as the biggest threat to humanity. But I think certainly when Antonio Guterres speaks, he's going to be speaking about climate change. And of course, even though you've got a lot of people here saying they want to create sustainable development, if you have a look at the amount of private jets that have come into Switzerland, it doesn't really tally. So we're going to, I think there's going to be a change of tone once Antonio Guterres speaks today. And then, of course, we've got the French President Emmanuel Macron. He is going to be addressing the forum at some point. And there are, of course, various other engagements. I did actually read this morning that Crown Prince Salman from Saudi Arabia is in town. That's quite interesting, just to see how everybody is going to navigate some tense relationships, some not so tense. So yes, it is very busy. We're running around trying to make sure that we are capturing the most important aspects. But again, this is not necessarily Africa's terrain. So even though there are some people that may frown anytime an African leader is in an event like this, it is absolutely important because this is where key decisions are made.
Well, Juliana, I'm particularly interested in the part where you talked about the African continental free trade area and the fact that you said it's neither male, that it's mostly male. Interesting thing is business is neither male nor female, nor is money, it's just money. But there's an aspect of that I'd like you to speak to, which is a private sector action plan for AfCFTA. Any updates on that? Because that's one of the main topics of discussion we understand the Vice President was going to be having.
Yes, absolutely. But just to be clear, this event that I'm at is actually being run by a group called the Africa Collective. So though they are talking about, or the theme, apologies, was the African Continental Free Trade area, it's separate from the Secretariat, who were co-hosting the event yesterday that Senator Kashima, the Vice President, was speaking at. But no, you're absolutely right. I think, I think a lot of individuals are starting to get fatigued. They're starting to feel as if, we're talking a lot, we're pledging a lot, we're saying there is lots of possibility, but what exactly is happening? And clearly it's going to take for this to become fruitful, multi-stakeholder collaboration and partnership, particularly because we know that the borders across the continent are so porous. It's almost impossible to think of us trading freely when there are so many issues in terms of infrastructure and logistics that we've got to climb over, including, a topic of a conversation in Nigeria, power and electricity. Until we get the basics right, some of these visions are merely that. And I think now, particularly this year, there are certain stakeholders that are saying, right, we can't just rely on leaders, world leaders, African leaders. Yes, we need the political will. Of course, you can't do it without them. You need the spirit. But I think we can't shift the blame. The private sector is absolutely fundamental in ensuring that, yes, this dream becomes a reality.
Well, Juliana, that's absolutely fabulous. Thank you so much for your reporting, and I know that we'll get more updates from you. Good luck, and please stay safe. Well, back to the conversation we're having with Mr. Oyedele here in the studio. Well, it's still business, right?
Yeah.
But you were talking about the fact that the governors, this 50 billion you talked about, is it cumulative?
It's cumulative for the whole year.
For the whole year, and for the whole nation, or for just one state?
For the whole nation, and they did not even collect 50 billion, so which means the pain that our people are going through, the chances of getting any fiscal exchange or dividend of paying taxes from government is zero, because the money is not getting to the government. So
on the average, my apologies, on the average, how much do you think, from the stickers and all of this information that you have, on the average, how much do you think these stickers, these levies and duties amount to?
No, I think only one local government should collect 50 billion. So the amount of wastage and leakage is mind-boggling. You don't want to fathom it. And it's really, to be honest, the reason why it's so painful is that these are the monies we're extracting from the poorest people. It's not like, I'm not saying it's okay to steal oil money, right? But when you extract money from people who are just trying to make ends meet on a day-to-day basis, it's painful that those monies are pilfered and, they are extorted and all of that. So the point to your question is, we think that where we are today, the state is not benefiting. The local government is not benefiting. And the people are sacrificing. They're going through pain, right? So what we are proposing, it's vastly different and benefits everyone. So imagine you have only just one tax. So our view is that there should be only one tax at the local government level. So you know how much you need to pay. You can pay it once or you can pay it instrumentally. And you pay it electronically. That's something, it shouldn't be that hard. It should not be harder to pay tax than it is to buy pizza, right? So the receipt comes on your phone. So that way the money gets to the government, the people pay less, government collects more. And then we can then move on to the second phase of what we're also working on, which is how do you spend that money to benefit the people. So our view is that the local government can collect more than 10 times what they are collecting now by following the recommendations that we're giving them. We also, as a sweetener, we're looking for sources where we can find at least 50 billion, which we can then use to compensate them for suspending the taxes we're asking them to suspend. We're also thinking about how do you bring all stakeholders on board. Because at the end of the day, if you stop the livelihood of anyone, whether they are earning it legitimately or not, you can create crises that will be difficult to manage. So, but once you bring everybody in, maybe we need to train those area boys and touts, give them uniform, and then they'll be the ones to ask you to show the evidence on your phone, right? And then they get paid a decent salary. And if you give them the skills, some of them will on their own move on from that job to something else, right? So our strategy is, let's think about what's best for our country and get all stakeholders to align. We do think that all the stakeholders, including the governors, want the best for their country. and we just need to make them see that big picture and then come along with us. So that's the plan that we have.
You know, when you say that, first of all, 50 billion multiplied by 774, I was never good in maths, so I can't even put that figures together. But by 100 alone is something. But, you know, I'm also intrigued by the fact that you said that, you know, all of these impact execution, by March would be done and over. I would like you to give us some clarity on that, because if I remember correctly, some of the levies that are in the Constitution for local governments to collect are radio licenses, TV licenses, and all those things. And if those are going to change, it has to be a function of legislation. And we all know that constitutional amendment is a long marathon of sorts on its own. What's the plan around that one?
Yeah, excellent question. So first is not, I'm not expecting every local government to make 50 billion, right? So 50 billion is what you expect from the biggest of them. And the biggest source of revenue for local government, to be honest, is property tax. So in many countries, you make more from property tax than any other form of taxes because you can't run away with it. It's there physically. That source is guaranteed, you know. So, and then in some countries, you just have council tax. You know, depending on the business you do, if you're a transporter, this is the amount you pay. If you're a tailor, if you're a vulcanizer. So that's you know, one thing. Then, but to your question about how do you quickly implement something as complicated as, you know, things that are even enshrined in the law or the Constitution? Yeah, so you're right. So our approach is that we would amend not only the relevant laws, we would amend even the Constitution. But we also recognize that that will take time. Yeah, you need the National Assembly, you need the states, you know, it's a long process. So, but we don't want to then wait until that process is concluded because people are really struggling. So our view is that if you have the power, if the law has given you the power to collect a tax, then you have the power not to collect it, right? So we're discussing with them to say suspend it. Okay. So if a state says, I'm no longer collecting haulage taxes for moving things from one place to the other, I don't see anybody taking them to court, right? So we think that they can suspend it while we walk through the details of amending the law, and in the meantime, find other revenues for them in lieu of what they have given up. So that's the idea. So that's the reason why we are hopeful that this can be done quickly. Because once it's suspended, we are working on an MOU already. We're visiting governors around. We have about 5 or 6 of them lined up over the next 30 days. Then we'll go to the governors forum. We've been to NEC already. So there's an MOU. Once they sign and they suspend it, people feel the impact like the following day. So that's our hope and aspiration.
One of these critical ones is also in the area of importation, imports and exports. So talk to us about those interventions, particularly at the ports, which we understand at some point someone said what unofficially is collected is about 100 million daily. Speak to us about the interventions in that regard.
Yeah, so export and import is a major area for our committee because not only does it impact on the economy, it impacts on international trade, the exchange rate, and so on and so forth. So we've been speaking to the players from custom themselves to the exporters to the importers, and there are lots of issues. Many of those issues are things that are within our control as a country. If you want to export anything out of Nigeria, some of them say you need about 23 different regulators with permits and licenses that nobody's asking for where you're going. And that process can take you somewhere between 2 to 3 months. Imagine if you're exporting perishable goods. If you import as well, it's just as complicated. It takes a lot of processes. And in fact, if you import, mobile phone, and somebody at customs says, what you just imported now is a satellite equipment, right? You're stuck with them. You have to pay the rate they want you to pay, or you incur demurrage, or you let go of those products. So we're also planning to create, an institution that will intervene in that process to get you out of it. We also have recommendations to promote export in services and creative. it's easier for you to do export of services and, let's say, intangibles than it is to export physical goods, because physical goods require infrastructure to be competitive, whereas services need less of it. And we can make loads of money from that. So there are countries like India that make over $200 billion just from, global process outsourcing. Philippines made $35 billion in 2022. So we're looking at those areas, focusing on not just goods, but services and intellectual property export, and simplifying the process of importing, including the single window for the customs. We're working with them to implement that quickly so that, because what tends to happen is you have 15 regulators asking you sometimes for the same thing at different times, and you have to pay charges, there are delays. Why can't you just create one government so everybody accesses that information at once?
Sometimes it looks like the ports in Lagos alone is a country on its own. And there are several questions around what your committee has done in that regard, but we're completely out of time now. We'll have to take them some other time.
No
so
worries.
thank you very much for your service and for everything that you're doing.
Thank you for having me.
Taiwo Yedele is Chairman, Presidential Tax and Fiscal Policy Reforms Committee. Thank you again for your time.
Thank you, Ayo.
Chamberlain.
Well, yes, indeed. We do have at least a comment or two about the development in Oyo State, where the unfortunate explosion occurred. Well, we did some new information coming through. But first of all, let's get to the courts, guys. Yes, we did tell you that the Supreme Court was going to decide on those two cases for Taraba and Sokoto State. So at the moment, the information we have at the moment is that first for Taraba, judgment has been, I beg your pardon, for Sokoto first. The Supreme Court has gone ahead and reserved judgment in that appeal filed by Seydou Omar challenging the election of Ahmed Aliyu as governor of Sokoto State. The 5-member panel, which was led by Justice Kudirat Kekerekun, adjourned after parties had adopted their process. Now, in that appeal, they're challenging Governor Idris on grounds that he forged his certificates, which was presented to INEC.
Well, a lot to say about what is happening in Oyo State. I'm sure that we'll be able to see visuals of that now. But the governor has issued a statement almost on all of his social media platforms. And looking at a few here, he said he visited the scene of the explosion, which occurred about 7:44 p.m. yesterday, January 16, in Bodija, Ibadan. So the location is Bodija. This unfortunate incident resulted in death and injury to residents in the vicinity and also affected property. We have already deployed first responders and all relevant agencies within Oyo State to carry out a comprehensive search and rescue operation. These will continue throughout. Now, earth-moving equipment, ambulances, emergency lights, etc. were deployed to the scene of the incident. In total, he says we have 77 injured victims so far, most of whom were treated and discharged, and 2 fatalities. I'm still looking at the time this was, this was issued. But he says, I urge our residents to, preliminary investigations by security agencies revealed that illegal miners occupying one of the houses in Bodija has stored explosive devices there, which caused the blast. Investigations are ongoing. All those found culpable will be brought to book. So this certainly is a developing story, because what has now been issued is a preliminary investigation. Their finding is that illegal miners are responsible for the blast which occurred in Bodija. We now know the location of this particular blast. And we'll certainly keep you updated when we get more information as to what precisely transpired. Was it just a storage? Did someone attempt to ignite it? What precisely could have caused the explosive devices to have ignited in the manner in which they did? Was it improper storage? These are questions which residents want. And then what's the scale of the destruction? How many people have been affected so far? We sincerely hope that there have not been any more fatalities. But these are certainly some of the information that we'll bring into you as soon as we have them. Chamberlain.
Yes, indeed. And Henry's email talking about FCT security. He wants the FCT minister and the police to do a lot more to ensure security. So, Harry, thank you for your messages. And that is the show today. We do thank you all for watching. We'll see you again tomorrow. I'm Chamberlain Oso. Goodbye.
Thank you for watching. I'm Maupe Ogun Yusuf.
And I'm Ayo Makinde. Do stay safe.